what is the difference between correcting a devotee and criticizing a devotee? When do we really come to know that we are correcting or criticizing? Chitraketu Maharaj, like you mentioned yesterday, was he actually correcting Lord Shiva or criticizing Lord Shiva? How do we discriminate between correcting and criticizing?
Hare Krishna. In this subject, our motivation is very important. If our motive is to serve that devotee, to uplift that devotee, to help that devotee to improve and progress, then that is a constructive motivation. If we're speaking out of anger, if we're speaking not to benefit that devotee, but rather to push down that devotee, to cause pain to that devotee, that is a criticism that is counted as a great offense. Our motivation should be to constructively serve, to help the Vaishnavas. Otherwise, our so-called correction could be an offense that causes havoc in our own spiritual lives. And it should not be taken lightly. Oftentimes, this subject is taken lightly. And therefore, oftentimes, devotees do face serious problems on the spiritual path. As well as our motivation, we should be very careful to analyze whether what we speak will have a constructive effect. Srila Prabhupada would chastise devotees, and for the rest of their lives, they consider that the most blessed highlight that they remember and they repeat to others year after year after year for the rest of their lives. Because they understood that his criticism of them was that of a ever well-wisher, someone who really cared about them, someone who invested his heart and soul to help them. We may criticize someone, and instead of bringing them up, we could push them down. And for the rest of their life, they'll consider that something very painful, very dark. Chitraketu Maharaj, his motive was to serve Lord Shiva. He was perfect, and Chitraketu knew he was perfect. Even if he was embracing Parvati while on his lap in the presence of many renowned sages. But what type of example is that showing to others? Mahajano Yenikata Sapanta. Lord Shiva is one of the 12 Mahajans. If he's embracing a woman in front of renowned souls, then other people will take that as an opportunity. So you are perfect. But if you are acting in a way that will cause other people to be imperfect, then it's not good for your mission, Lord Shiva. Therefore, I'm marking this to you. So Chitraketu, he was trying to serve. But his mistake, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, is there was some pride in his heart. He felt he was really great because he had just seen Lord Vishnu. And due to that pride, he was thinking that he was in a position to instruct such a superior personality. And therefore, it wasn't just a correction, but it was taken by Parvati herself to be a criticism. So when we're correcting someone, we must check that our motivation is quite pure in the sense that it is really, honestly, for that person's welfare. It's not just an expression of my own anxiety. It's not just an outlet of my own frustrations and anger that I'm inflicting on someone else. It is not to push someone down or to expose someone in front of others. It's to help that person and to help the community of devotees. That is our motivation. Second of all, is what we speak, we should be confident that it's going to have that positive effect. It's going to be effective. And third, it should be according to the proper standards of Vaishnav etiquette. What is our relationship with that person? What is that person's particular position? These things all have to be taken into consideration. It's not just what we say, but how we say it that can have a great effect. And actually, before finding faults in a devotee, it is good that we check all of these. And if we say, well, managerially, it's just inefficient to do that. But the problem is, because we take criticism of Vaishnavas so cheaply, devotees fall down like rain. Because such a prominent teaching in Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and all the Vaishnava scriptures of how important it is not to criticize others, whether it's directly or behind their backs. It's very serious. We'll lose Krishna's mercy. We could fall down. And it's a major reason, the acharyas say, for devotees falling down. But still, because of our lack of Vaishnava culture, trying to see things from a material perspective, we think that it's efficient. But it's just a justification. We should be very careful. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told us, you can get Krishna's mercy and be delivered. Just chant the holy names, do not criticize others. And these things are all fulfilled if we're actually in the attitude of the servant of the servant of the servant. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. The next question is for His Holiness Niranjana Swami Maharaj. Maharaj, sometimes we see that devotees who have power as an authority misuse that power? So there are three questions. Do we have the right?
I'm okay.
Do we have the right to reject such an authority whom we do not feel inspired by? The second question is, if yes, on what basis should the rejection be made? And the third part of the question is, if we have no choice but to follow such an authority, what should we be doing?
Hare Krishna. When we say authority, can I qualify this question? I'm not quite sure of the inquiry. Are we talking about a spiritual authority or managerial authority?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. It just says authority here, Maharaj. So
okay. So then I'll answer. Authority also has to be accepted in a voluntary spirit. Sometimes there are authority in our lives that are due to their particular position or relationship that we have with them, we're forced to accept. But the highest authority is that authority who invokes faith in our heart. Faith and surrender and accepting Krishna's authority. That has to be there in the heart to accept any authority. Otherwise, we may say accept so many authorities, but if there's no faith in the principle of accepting the supreme authority, then it could have a very adverse reaction. Therefore, we have to seek out the association, first and foremost, of those authorities who inspire faith in our heart to surrender to Krishna. When we have that faith in our heart, when we have that association, we can accept any situation that Krishna puts us in and see it as Krishna's arrangement for our own purification. Even if it appears that we're under a very difficult situation and intolerable situation. Devotees can undergo even the most difficult situation because of their firm faith in Guru and Krishna. In my position, I've sometimes even had to instruct my devotees who are dependent upon me that how to become Krishna conscious despite their authorities. Because sometimes situations may arise. But if the devotee has faith in Krishna and sees that Krishna has put me in this situation for my own purification, then he'll never lose. He'll never lose. But if he doesn't have faith in that authority who inspires in him to surrender to Krishna, then he'll be in duality. Should I accept? No, I shouldn't accept. I should accept somebody else who potentially could be somebody who satisfies my own personal needs in a way that is more acceptable for me. We should not make that our business. Everybody should make it their business to seek out the association of that person who inspires so much faith that they can be in any situation and see Krishna present there. I remember one time, I had an experience in my brahmachari life. I had a particular devotee who was the temple president, who took great pleasure in insulting me in public. I didn't perceive it that way at the time, but he did it a lot. And it was very difficult for me. I was a Sankirtan leader. I was one of the leaders of the temple, and I kept on thinking, why isn't he supporting me? I'm taking care of so many brahmacharis. I'm taking them out in Sankirtan. But I said, I have to somehow try to see Krishna in this. And then Krishna arranged that I had to give Srimad Bhagavatam class for several days, 1 week, for the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the story of Jad Bharat, and how King Rahugana was dealing with Jad Bharat. And I was thinking, Krishna is so kind, that I could speak with some small realization from these verses because of what I've been put in, the situation I've been put in. And I was so happy. I was so happy that I had that opportunity. It sticks out in my mind. I had the opportunity to be insulted and pushed down because I could see. And Jad Bharat was such a perfect example of being totally equipoised in the face of insult. So, having that experience, I realized it was only due to Srila Prabhupada's mercy that I could not only tolerate that, but benefit from it. So that's the mercy of a Vaishnava who gives us shelter in Krishna consciousness. That we should accept as our authority in our lives. And if we accept that, we can accept any other situation that Krishna may put us in, because we can see Krishna present in that situation and advance and be peaceful. I don't know if I answered the question, but I didn't answer all. I answered under all one principle, I think, rather than each one of the 3 questions.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. The next question is for His Holiness Chandramauli Swami Maharaj. Is Shiva Loka within the material universe or is it in the spiritual world? Is Shiva Loka within the material universe or within the spiritual world? And also, what is the difference between Shiva and Sada Shiva?
This is a question based on knowledge of Shastra. It's explained in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita when Gopa Kumara was going through the various levels of the material world. He is going to, Swargaloka and the different planets within the Swargaloka, and meeting the devotees who are worshipping the Lord in various aspects of the Lord, various manifestations of the Lord's forms. And then when he went beyond that, he came to the area which was just beyond the border of the material world. And in that area, he comes to the planet of Lord Shiva. And in that, he, of course, meets Lord Shiva and then honors Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva also speaks to him. So it's described that just beyond the realm of the material world and just before, you can correct me, devotees, Radhanath Maharaj or Niranjana Maharaj, if I'm wrong on this, but this is my recall of this, that just before the Brahma Jyoti, or the, what we say, the manifestation of the bodily effulgence of the Lord, which enters into the spiritual realm, Lord Shiva's planet is there, Kailash. So it's on the border of the 2 realms, or in between. And the second is...
Second one is, what is the difference between Shiva and Sadashiva?
There is a Shiva in every universe. And I recall from a lecture by His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj when he was describing the position of Advaita Acharya, and he was saying that he is a combination of Mahavishnu and Sadashiva. And the original Shiva, or Sadashiva, has his own planet in the Vaikuntha realms. And from there, all the manifestations or all the expansions of other forms of Shiva, which are actually posts, are just his, servants are in that same position. But there is an original Shiva in the spiritual world, in the Vaikuntha realm. So in the material realm, each of the universes has a Brahma and a Shiva, and they're posts. But there's the manifestation of the original Shiva in the Vaikuntha realm.
Thank you, Maharaj. The next question is for His Holiness Radhanath-Swami Maharaj. Maharaj, sometimes we are very highly qualified in terms of academics and material education, and we are in a dilemma how to make the right choice. On one hand, we have an opportunity to take a very simple job, although we are very highly qualified, so that we have a lot of time for Krishna and do direct service to Krishna and Guru. On the other hand, we feel that we can take some job in a very high capacity, in a very influential capacity, and serve the mission of Srila Prabhupada in a more influential way. Just like Srila Prabhupada asked George Harrison not to join the temple as a brahmachari, but to use his influence as a pop singer to glorify Krishna. So the dilemma is whether to take a simple job and do more direct service to Krishna, or to use our academic qualifications to be highly placed and use that influence in service to Krishna.
Both are perfect if our motivation for devotional service is perfect. But specifically, according to time, place, and circumstance, on how we could best serve, that is to be sincerely and honestly researched within our own hearts, as well as to accept the invaluable opinions of senior Vaishnavas. George Harrison was willing to give up his post as a Beatle, which is almost on the level of Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma as far as influence in the Earth planet at that time. But he asked superior Vaishnavas like Shamsundar Prabhu, who brought him to Srila Prabhupada. And through Srila Prabhupada's wisdom, he told him, no, you could carry on. You can influence millions of people through what you're doing. If you live in the temple, you will not have that effect. And similarly, one time one of our devotees, who has a very nice home, very influential position, was thinking, this is too nice. Let my family just move in a simple flat like everyone else. And asked my opinion. I said, when people see you living the way you are, so simply, with your family, so eager to serve, that will have a very serious effect on people's hearts. You're so detached, so humble, so sincere, living so simple, even in such a nice home, and so eager to serve others. If you're just living in a little flat, hardly any devotees will notice you, but the world will not notice you. That happened to be Krishna Chandra Prabhu and his family. That's why they're still living in their same house. As a service to Krishna, as a service to the world, as an instrument of Prabhupada's mercy. That's their motivation for living in such a nice home. And it's true. Niranjana Maharaj, would you like to tell us about the effect they had on your sister? First, I'll tell you the effect they had on my mother and father. My mother and father, when I was living in Himalayas, sending letters back to them that I'm living in caves and I'm meditating on the wisdom being whispered in my ears by nature and God, they thought I was insane. They didn't know what to think. Then I was living up in a mountain of mud. And they thought why? They respected because of their love, their affection. They respected, but they could not understand. They could respect, but they could not appreciate. Until they lived in Krishna Chandra Prabhu and Radha Priya's home and saw the way they lived and their service attitude and their kindness, their love, their total giving of themselves for others. They had a tour of their factories. Also, Srinathji Prabhu and his family, they went to his home. And the first time they ever saw me give a lecture was on the terrace. And they saw these very, very nice people that they could identify with. And one time after a lecture, Krishna Chandra Prabhu's father says to my father, "Your son is great." When my father says, "He doesn't even have a bank account." He doesn't have any property. He has nothing in his name. You have all these big, big industries and tens and thousands of employees and stockholders and beautiful home and family, and you're saying he's great? And he said, no, we are very small. He is great because he is teaching people about God. Seeing that experience totally changed my parents' hearts forever. They not only respected Krishna consciousness, to the core of their heart, they loved it and appreciated it. When they went back home, they insisted that all my brother's children were blessed in a Hare Krishna temple by their brother who was a priest and given Krishna names. That's to the degree that their hearts changed by living in that nice home with such simple, unmotivated, loving devotees. Niranjana Maharaj, would you like to tell us about your sister?
I can say something, but first I have to preface my words by saying that I have to be careful now because of what Krishna Chandra and Radha Priya Mataji have done for my sister. She's connected very much to devotees now, so whatever I say, she's going to hear it.
We'll make sure she doesn't hear it.
So, I have to be careful. But anyways, what Radhanath Maharaj said is very true. And my sister is further evidence of somebody whose life was dramatically changed. So dramatically changed as a result of being a guest in the home of those two wonderful devotees. And I can relate a little bit to this story behind it, is that my sister she's a hospital administrator, and in a very big hospital. She has a good position, and her interest in Krishna consciousness over the years was not very substantial. Of course, she's always, I'm her only brother, so we've had a relationship. But she never really delved into my life so much as a devotee, until I invited her to come to Mumbai and to see the Bhaktivedanta Hospital and to associate with the devotees of Radha Gopinath Mandir. And it was arranged that she stay at the home of Krishna Chandra Prabhu and Radha Priya Mataji. When she saw, of course, people of that caliber, it didn't take her very long to figure out when she entered that house that she was staying someplace special. And she was quite overwhelmed that somebody of that caliber, what to speak of, was Hare Krishna. that even in and of itself created quite a paradigm shift in her mind, or her conception of what devotees of Hare Krishna are. She always saw me as the Hare Krishna devotee who, you know, didn't get married and doesn't have a bank account and renounces worldly aspirations. And usually, generally, people in that who have an affluent position, they look at such persons as, because of a sense of pride, as, you know, they're really doing something substantial. I was supposed to take my sister to Jaipur and then to Vrindavan. And the night that my sister was visiting Srinathji in his home, and we're having dinner, and Srinathji was showing my sister around his home, and I fell very ill. And because I had been sick with dysentery, and it became very serious. And the following morning, Srinathji very kindly brought me to Breach Candy Hospital, and they admitted me right away because it was quite serious. And I assured my sister that I told her, you go ahead to Jaipur. And I'm sure I won't be here very long. And she was with one other person. So I convinced her that I would probably only be there for a day or two. They had me hooked up to IV, and that I would be better quite quickly. But as it turned out, she went to Jaipur. As it turned out, she was getting ready to go to Jaipur. And she came to see me in the hospital before leaving for Jaipur. And she sat down and she said to me, so I'm going to go to Jaipur and I'll wait for your call and we'll meet there. And then all of a sudden, she just burst into tears. And she was crying, torrents of tears. I said, what's the matter? She said, I don't want to leave these people. I don't want to say goodbye to them. These are the nicest people I've ever met in my whole life. And she was crying, and she couldn't stop crying. And she tried to gather herself, and she said, maybe I shouldn't go. Maybe I should stay here. I said, no, you go ahead, you go. And I'll meet you. So she said, well, first I'm going to go back to Krishna Chandra's and get my things, and I'll get to say goodbye to them. But I don't want to say goodbye to them. It's just crying, crying, crying. I don't want to leave. So I told her that she should go, and she ended up going, and then it ended up that I couldn't leave the hospital for 11 days because I was more sick than I thought I was. And when I told her that, she was so happy. She was in Jaipur. She immediately jumped back on the plane just to be back, come back to Mumbai and stay with Krishna Chandra and Radhapriya for some time longer. So that, and now she associates with devotees. She has been in regular communication with the devotees she stayed with in Mumbai the second time when she came for Anjali's wedding. And she went to New Vrindavan for Janmashtami, and she was staying there with Nartaki Mataji, who she met in the hospital. She's constantly, and because she's communicating with so many devotees and connected, she comes to the temple, she loves chanting and kirtan. She always knows where I am before I even tell her. She knows, she knows all my movements. And she says, "You've become my passport to the whole world." And as a matter of fact, I just got an email from her about 1 week ago, and she's planning a trip to Ukraine. And in July or August of this year, she's coming for a couple of weeks. Just, she wants to see, as she called my kshetra. And she wants to associate with the devotees there. So this was all something that I couldn't do in 30 years. Krishna Chandra Prabhu and Radhapriya Mataji did in just a few days.
Bhaktivedanta Hospital is another example of how devotees who pursued their careers have become so effective in transforming so many people's lives toward Krishna consciousness. So if we compare, we'll find the devotees at Bhaktivedanta Hospital, some men, some ladies, who pursued their careers in medicine, administration, and so forth. People like Srinathji Prabhu, Sahadev Prabhu, Satchidananda Prabhu, Radha Giridhari Prabhu, Krishna Chandra Prabhu, and many, many others. All the renovations of the whole temple of Radha Gopinath were financed by just a couple people, devotees who pursued their careers, but selflessly wanted to give the fruits of their actions to Krishna. At the same time, we find brahmacharis. Brahmacharis who have very, very high degrees. Some have PhDs, some MAs, some engineers from IIT and other doctors. They could be abroad making huge sums of money today. But they sacrificed everything to sleep on the floor of the brahmachari ashram, live according to those very austere conditions, and give their hearts to preaching Krishna consciousness. And see what they're doing. Radha Gopinath Prabhu, Shyamananda Prabhu, Gauranga Prabhu, Gaur Gopal Prabhu, Govinda Prabhu. I don't know how much money he would be making, like the others, but definitely he's having such a powerful effect on so many thousands of people's lives. So here are people who could be making lots of money with big, powerful careers, but they gave their lives to the simple renunciation, and they're transforming thousands and thousands of people's lives. And then there are others who could be brahmacharis perhaps, but they chose the career, like the doctors, like some of our business devotees, other professionals. And they're having such a big effect in positively transforming people's hearts and helping Prabhupada's mission. So it's a long answer to the question, but they are both perfect. We have to research our own heart of where we're most inspired to serve and take the guidance of senior devotees who could help us. Hare Krishna. It's a very important question.
Thank you, Maharaj. There's a small announcement. There is a grey Santro car, and this car has its light questions for His Holiness Niranjana Swami.
It took someone of the caliber of Srinathji Prabhu to bring my parents to India. I invited them. They said, India, that place of poverty, why would we go there? If Govinda Prabhu were to invite them, even if Radha Gopinath were to invite them, thank you very much, but Srinathji Prabhu, when he invites them, if he's inviting me, there must be good toilets. There must be nice beds. If any of these brahmacharis invite me, we'll be on the floor somewhere. And the amazing thing is, to this day, my mother, when she was dying, Srinathji Prabhu offered to bring her to Vrindavan and to take care of her for the rest of their life. My whole family thought no one could make an offer like that, who's not even a family member. And they all agreed to send her. But by Krishna's grace, Krishna took her away before she came. And my family members all agreed. Let us cremate her body. In the Jewish tradition, in our whole family, since the time of Abraham, in our family, nobody ever cremated a body. But they cremated. And they asked me to give the speech at her funeral in front of all their relatives, friends, and everyone. And then they gave all the ashes to me to bring to India. Family said, your mother loved the devotees in India so much, we believe this is where she would want her ashes to be. And if you remember, during Mayapur Yatra, we placed them in the Ganga and also in Yamuna. And to this day, my father's best friends are Srila Prabhupada's disciples and devotees. Srinathji Krishna Chandra Radhagiri Dari, Raghunath Prabhu, Yogeshwar Prabhu, Sham Sundar Prabhu. Every week, my father has breakfast with Sham Sundar Prabhu when he's in Chicago, and they talk for hours and hours and hours. I don't know what they talk about. But I know Sham Sundar is somehow or other speaking about Krishna and Prabhupada. And Yogeshwar Prabhu is one of my father's best friends. One of Prabhupada's very senior, dear disciples. And recently Yogeshwar Prabhu called me and said, I talk to your father regularly, almost every week or two. And we talk for a long time. He said, but I will never tell you what we talk about. I said, as long as it's not about me, I don't care what you're talking about. But yes, devotees in different positions can serve in such instrumental ways if they just have that unmotivated spirit of servitude. Grihe tako, vane tako, sada hari bole tako. We could be empowered as grihastas, we could be empowered as brahmacharis, we could be empowered just doing simple service at the temple, we can be empowered like Maharaj Prataparuja. He was ruling the state and he wanted to become a sadhu. And all the devotees said, no, you can serve so well by remaining king. And Lord Chaitanya told Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, do not marry, become a sadhu, go to Vrindavan. So they are both perfect. Hare Krishna.